Why do I see myself?
You're supposed to.
What's wrong?
Nothing. Yeah.
Oh, got one person.
Hey guys, there we go. We're back. Okay, sorry about that. So I'll take it from the top, I guess. So thanks for coming back and joining us. Sorry for the technical difficulties we had. So where I left off is why essentially you should hear what I have to say. Number one, I've been through the shift before. I started in the business 2003. It was hot in 2003, 4, 5, and still pretty hot in 2006 when we started to see the shift. And what happened in 2006 is very similar to what's happening now. Homes are staying on the market longer. We're having to go back and get price reductions. We're having to have more discussions with sellers about why their home isn't selling. Also, what's happening is a lot of new agents are still getting into the business. There's probably more people getting into the business in a lot of markets and sales that are taking place even. No, I'm kidding when I say that. But the reality is that if sales start dropping and more agents are continuing to get in the business, which is what we saw in 2006, then there has to be a shift that takes place. And the reason for that is because, all right, it's simple economics. You have less sales to go around and more people in the business. So I'm going to share with you my thoughts, my opinions. I'm not saying they're right. It's the experience that I have of 16 years of doing this, of being through a strong market, being through a bad market, then being through a strong market again. And I've made some predictions, of course, so I'll probably put some disclaimers out there and put some asterisks out there on these predictions. But ultimately, what I'm going to take you through is exactly what I think we can expect in this next shift. Now, the good news is, like I said in the previous video, that we had some technical difficulties. I don't think we're going to have the same shift that we had in 2008, 9, and 10. And the reason for that is because in 2008, 9, 10, 11, it started turning around in 2011. That was a financial crisis and it was a jobs crisis. Of course, the financial crisis had a lot to do with mortgages that they were just giving out to everybody. Well, we know that they tightened that up a bit, but you also know over the last couple of years, if you've been paying attention, they've been loosening that up as well. So that's starting to loosen up a little bit. And of course, me being from Detroit, we had the auto industry crisis. So we went through a major shift. I don't think we're going to see a major shift. I think it's probably going to be a little bit more of a balanced market, which is still something we haven't seen in several years. So let me share with you, and these are in no particular order. Over this last several weeks, months, whatever, since we've been talking about the shift coming, I've been thinking about, all right, what can we expect and how can we not only just get through it, but how can we thrive in it? So really, as silly as it sounds, these are in no particular order. They're completely random thoughts of mine that I've had that I wanted to get on paper and share with you today. So I'm going to do that with you. So again, in no particular order, I wrote down number one. And if you want to write these down with us, I probably have 20, 30 points to give you. And if you know me by now, if you've been following Glover U for a while now, you know I sometimes get off on tangents, which is good because then I end up giving you more information anyways. So number one, I wrote down experience and time in the business will carry more value on interviews. Experience and time in the business carries more value on interviews, meaning a listing presentation interview or a buyer consultation interview. And the reason why I say that is because, as you've noticed, the last 3 to 5 years as the market's been hot, that hasn't been as important to sellers or buyers, because when the market's hot, our value drops. When the market's cooler, our value as realtors increases. So if the market's hot and the consumers think, we really don't need a realtor to sell it, but we should probably get one just because you're supposed to, they don't really care how much experience you have or how long you've been in the business. Where now when the market shifts, the experience and time in the business actually starts to carry more weight and more value. Next, I wrote down in the next market that we're starting to experience, listings are actually easier to come by, but will require more price reductions to sell. I can remember in 2008, 9, and 10, I actually had a day designated once a week called Price Reduction Fridays. And so I would go through every single one of my sellers. I was probably carrying 60, 70 listings just myself personally. And I would go through every single seller on Friday and have to talk to them about price reductions and how to get their home priced effectively and how to get ahead of the market. You guys probably remember those scripts for those of you that were around. And so it's interesting. I was having conversations with a lot of our agents the last couple of days about getting price reductions. And remember this key thought on price reductions. you get more price reductions, and it's easier to get price reductions when you're in constant communication with your clients, even if you have nothing to tell them, right? So even if you don't have any updates for them, but you're calling them once a week to let them know you're going to work for them, when you call for that price reduction, it's much easier to get a price reduction because you've been staying in touch weekly. If you go 2 or 3 weeks without talking to them, then getting a price reduction is extremely difficult because it's like, where have you been? What have you been doing to sell my home? You know, we want to talk more about that than necessarily lowering our price. So listings are easier to come by, but will require more price reductions to sell. Number 3, buyers will get offers accepted the first time around, but will want to look at more homes. So the good news is for you buyers agents out there, or agents that love working with buyers, it's easier to get offers accepted. The downside is they want to look at more homes. They want to take their time. There's no rush. There's less urgency. So the good news is you'll get your buyer's offer accepted maybe the first or second time around, but it's going to require more showings, which goes back to the whole discussion of, you know, working with buyers versus working with sellers, which is a whole nother video or discussion. Number 4, builders slow down new construction builds. There's less spec homes available, yet there will be more custom builds. All right, so there's less spec homes available, yet there will be more custom builds because builders don't want to build and sit on inventory. So instead, they wait for someone to show up, and then they'll custom build a house or they'll build it the way that the buyer wants it. So many land developers, those that have money, will buy up land and sit on it until the next market shift. Builders do that too, by the way. For those of you that were around in the last market shift, you know, prices were doing this and builders were just holding firm. And their mindset was, hey, we'll wait until the market comes back. If even this is a 2 or 3 year old house, we'll wait until the market comes back. And a lot of them did, and then they ended up getting their price. If they have deep pockets, they don't have to reduce. They'll just wait 3 or 4 years. It's just like any other investment. It's like waiting for a stock to come back. So builders slow down on new construction builds, which, by the way, we're already seeing that. Less spec homes are available, so there will be more custom builds. And many land developers will buy up land and sit on it until the next market shift. Next, I wrote down, and this is a big one, and I cannot wait for this, and present company excluded, because you obviously are all here to learn how to dominate and fight through the next market shift. So you guys are excluded from this rule, but this is a reality. Part-time realtors and the one-hit wonders will drop out of the business. Part-time realtors and one-hit wonders will drop out of the business. Now, of course, if you're watching this and you've had some great success the last 3 years or 4 years or 5, and it's the only market you know, I'm not considering you a one-hit wonder, but I would take caution and say, okay, how did I do the business I just did the last 3 to 5 years? What did I do specifically? What am I noticing different? And what do I need to adjust? Part-time realtors and one-hit wonders will drop out of the business in the next market shift. There's just not enough business to go around. You don't have the random, oh my gosh, we got to get into a house tomorrow. We got to move. That just doesn't happen. It's in a shift. The people that are moving are the people that need to move, not the people that want to move, right? So right now when the market's hot, you have both the people that want to move and the people that need to move. In a market shift, you only have the people that absolutely have to move, and that's a reality. Next, I wrote down, the business stemming from your database will increase. So those that are really good with their database and good at taking care of their database, good at talking to their database, good at staying in touch with their database, throwing client parties, whatever you can do for your database, that will be a gold mine when the market shifts. So I would encourage you, if it's just, you know, an Excel spreadsheet and you keep in touch with them every now and then and you send them a few mailings, start writing plans on how to get more business out of the database. Now, the good news is between now and the end of the year, I'll do future videos and discussions on how you can master your database in the next shift, because I truly believe that's going to be one area where agents succeed versus the agents that just left their database alone and focus on something else. Very important point, and for those of you that know me, this is how I started the business. The business generated from expired listing prospecting will increase. The business generated from expired listing prospecting will increase. Depending on your market, okay? You might have right now on an average day 10 expireds, 20 expireds. You know, most agents I'm talking to average anywhere from 10 to say 30 expireds a day in their market, all right? That number will double or will triple. We're already seeing it in Michigan. I can tell you, I asked our ISAs this morning before I jumped into this video conference. I said, hey guys, how many expires do we have today? And they said 50 exactly. Now, when I say expireds, I'm talking about expireds and cancels or withdrawals, whatever you call them in your market, unconditional withdrawals in our market. So we have 50 today across the markets we work in Michigan, which means that if you look back the last couple of years, if I were to go back to say September the 30th, 2017 or to September the 30th, 2016, I bet you there weren't more than 25. So we have more than double the amount of homes coming off the market right now. Now I get it. Some markets are different. You may be saying, well, I'm not seeing that yet. All right. I talked to agents in California and Florida, and they're telling me that they've seen that for the last 6 months. I did a talk this spring down in Naples, and I was telling them this was coming, and they said, oh, you know, someone in the audience raised their hand and said, oh, it's already here. We're already seeing double the amount of homes come off the market. So it's happening here in Michigan. It's happening in other parts of the country. If it hasn't come your way yet, it will. So the business generated from expired listing prospecting will increase, which is great because that means there's more opportunities. All right. Next. For sale by owner opportunities and for sale by owner listings decrease. All right, so expired business goes up, for sale by owner business goes down. For sale by owner business goes down really for two reasons. Okay, number one, there's less overall confidence from sellers in the market. So therefore, there's less for sale by owner signs that go on the ground. Well, if there's less for sale by owner signs that go on the ground, then there's less opportunities, which means less sales coming from for sale by owners. Now, there is a silver lining in the for sale by owner. Even though the amount of listings will decrease, the for sale by owner need for our service increases. So even though we're looking at a situation where we have less opportunities to go around, you're more than likely to get their business in the shift than you are when things are hot, because when things are hot, they don't need you. Right now, we know that many of them do, and we still help get to a closing table and so forth. But the reality is that the for sale by owner opportunities will decrease. They'll be easier to get, though. There'll just be less overall for sale by owner opportunities to go around. So I'm telling a lot of our associates right now, hey, if you're like the for sale by owner king, you're like, I love for sale by owners, I want you to shift your mindset to working expireds, because there will be less for sale by owner opportunities. The reality is, you could argue, well, yeah, but they'll need our help more, so more of them are more likely to list. Absolutely. But in comparison to how many for sale by owners actually come on the market or actually stick their sign in the ground, there's no comparison. So that's why I would encourage you to shift your focus to work expired listings in the next shift. In the next shift, for a lot of you, and I'm telling you, I've went to a lot of conferences and I've talked to a lot of agents, and a lot of you are not going to want to hear this. In the next shift, in the market shift, open houses will become less effective. Open houses will become less effective. The reason is, the reason why open houses are hot right now, by the way, is because it's a seller's market and inventory is low. So what do the buyers do? They do everything they can to learn about the inventory and learn what's for sale, and they exhaust all options to find property. Why do they do that? Because the realtor isn't sending them what fits their needs, or they're losing out on other homes, so they're trying to go out and see what they can find. Well, that happens in a seller's market, and that's why anyone that's worked for open houses the last 3 to 5 years has had great success, right? I mean, for those of you that were in the business in 2008, 9, and 10, it wasn't common that you'd walk into your office on Monday and say, hey, I just sold a house from an open house, or I just got 2 buyers from this open house and I'm writing an offer today. That didn't happen. And the reason why it doesn't happen in the market when it softens or when the market shifts is because there's enough inventory to support what they're looking for. So they don't need to exhaust all measures or go out and do things on their own. They can hire a realtor, and there's enough homes to see. When it's a seller's market and there's not enough homes to see, they go shop open houses. So unfortunately, if open houses are your thing, I'm not telling you to cut them out. If it's your number one or number 2 source of business, that is going to drop substantially. All right, so how do you plan for that? Well, you know that it's going to go lower on your sources of business, so you're going to have to add in another source of business. Or you can do what I talk about a lot, and I did videos on this earlier in the year called Master Year 3. You could also double down on open houses, and what I mean by that is if you're used to doing 2 open houses a month, and over the course of a year it generates you 20 transactions, you might have to do 4 to get that same 20. You might have to double down on your open house efforts. You might have to hold 2 open houses on a Saturday or 2 open houses on a Sunday, which can be done to get the same result. The reality is the results will drop from open houses. Next, I wrote down skills and your ability to sell will become the differentiator between the best and the rest in the business. Skills and your ability to sell will become the differentiator between the best and the rest in the business. Your sales skills. What I mean by that is, do you have a real estate agent mentality or do you have a salesperson mentality? Do you have a consultant mentality or a salesperson mentality? Do you have a salesperson mentality or a realtor mentality? Okay, your mentality needs to be, I'm in sales, and therefore if I'm in sales, how do I sell? I sell by asking questions and think words coming out of my mouth, discussions that I'm having. So therefore, if I'm a real estate salesperson, I need to improve my overall sales skills in this next shift. In the good, hot market, you don't need to have great sales skills. Homes sell themselves. Buyers buy regardless of what you say. Sellers list with you because it's convenient and it's quick and we can get it done. In the shift, it becomes much more competitive because those that have the will of the champion to survive and thrive in the next shift get better. So skills and your ability to sell will become the differentiator between the best and the rest in the business. Next, I wrote down, technology becomes a difference maker, but only for those who embrace the idea of daily face-to-faces. I'll repeat that. Technology becomes a difference maker. There's no doubt, right? Technology, we know that there's a major shift going on. There's a tech shift happening in the market. There's no doubt. And by the way, that's part of the shift that we haven't experienced before. It's a difference maker. There's no doubt, but only for those who embrace the idea of daily face-to-faces, which means I don't care what technology you have, all right? I don't care what CRM, I don't care what system, I don't care what it is. However you arrive at that appointment, however you arrive at the face-to-face, what you say when you get there will trump that technology that might have helped you get there, all right? I want to be real clear about that. Technology is a difference maker. You got to have great technology, but it still becomes about what you say and how your skills are when you get there. Next, I wrote down commission cutting from realtors will slow down. We'll see less agents cutting their commission. It's unfortunate when the market's hot, agents actually think that they're not as valuable because the consumers think that. Well, if the consumer thinks it, then I don't need to charge as much. The good news is in the next market, commission cutting actually slows down. So that's a win. Next, I wrote down listing agents will succeed at a higher level while buyer's agents may struggle. Listing agents will succeed at a higher level while buyer's agents may struggle. Okay? The reality there is because the amount of homes that you're going to have to show increases means you spend more time to do just one deal. Where the amount of listings, you could argue, well, the amount of listings that sell does drop. It does, all right? Right now in most markets, it's probably 85% of listings sell. That might go down to 75% or 70%. But it's not as drastic as the difference in the amount of homes that you have to show, which means the buyer's agents will struggle because we only have so much time in the world. To do the same amount of business, it might take them twice the amount of time. Where to sell the same amount of listings, you might only take one extra listing or two extra listings, which pales in comparison to the amount of time you're going to spend showing homes to buyers. So listing agents will succeed at a higher level while buyer's agents will struggle. I wrote down referrals will become more prominent. Okay, why is that? The market's tougher. It matters who you list with. It matters who you sell with. So referrals from not just other agents, I'm talking about referrals from your family, your past clients, your database. Referrals will become more prominent in a tougher market because people think they might only have one shot at buying a home or one shot at selling a home. So the referral piece is very strong. Next, I wrote down average real estate, I'm going to skip that one. I want to keep us on track with our time. Average real estate agents dissipate as they can't justify the returns. Average real estate agent teams dissipate as they can't justify the returns. We're already starting to see it right now with real estate teams. The amount of leads coming in are down. The advertising isn't as effective as it used to be. Well, if they're newer to the game, meaning they were just formed in the last year or two or three or four, they haven't been through that other market, what they did to get them where they are is not working as good now as it was 3 years ago. So the average real estate teams or the newer real estate teams start to dissipate because the returns start to drop. And if the returns start to drop, a smart business person looks at a return on their time. And if you look at the return on your time, it doesn't justify having a real estate team that isn't making any money, but also consuming half of your week, right? That's the mistake that a lot of teams make to begin with. They think that by getting into the business of having a real estate team is going to actually net them more money. That's not the case. Next, I wrote down, the big teams gain market share as the smaller fish can't compete with their value propositions. All right, so a lot of the smaller teams or the average teams or the newer teams, they don't have a lot of money in the bank. So when there's a market shift, they have to cut, all right? Your bigger teams, when there's a market shift, certainly they're going to make some cuts, but they also have money set aside because they've been around a long time or they were profitable for a while or whatever the case may be, or the leader is still in production, which I believe in being in production as a lead agent. The big teams gain market share as the smaller fish can't compete with their value propositions. We still have money in the bank to dip in and improve our value proposition. A lot of these newer teams, if they were formed in the last few years, they don't have that bankroll in order to do that. So they end up acquiring other teams. You'll see teams merge. You'll see agents that it was them and a couple people want to be a part of a bigger picture, and all of a sudden that you start to see these teams that are already big get bigger. I wrote down, again, these are in no particular order. Anyone that got into the business post-2013 will need to develop strong prospecting skills in order to succeed. Anyone that got into the business post-2013 will need to develop strong prospecting skills in order to succeed. You guys have heard me say time and time again, I really believe that's one of the reasons why our team has succeeded at the level it succeeds at, because we never gave that up, right? A lot of people prospected for business in 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. A lot of people were prospecting for business. Market gets hot, prospecting goes away because we don't have to prospect as much. We can make less calls to do the same amount of business, less dials and so forth. Well, guess what? That all needs to be doubled down. That all needs to come back, because the reality is that anyone that got into business after 2013 hasn't really been forced to prospect at a high level. Now, I'm sure present company excluded, those that are watching this, many of you probably have prospected a lot. But I'm telling you, it pales in comparison to what the prospecting looked like in 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Next point, and it goes along with the previous point. General advertising calls decrease. The amount of calls and leads and inquiries that come in on your advertising today will drop. There's no doubt about it. We saw that in the last shift. I had a discussion with my mentor, Gary Keller, about this. Advertising calls that come in or emails, people requesting to work with you, decline, which goes back to the previous point. That means we're forced to go out and find more business on our own and not wait for business to find us. Next, I wrote down many, not all, many expansion teams will struggle because the focus will return back home to the base location. Because if you think about a lot of the expansion teams, they're built on agents doing 20, 25, 30, 36 transactions a year. Well, if you take an agent doing 30 transactions a year, maybe making 70, 80, 100, depending on your price range, let's just call it $100,000. You take away 10 of those transactions, because the reality is some of those are going to go away. Well, now they go from making 75 down to making 50,000. Well, that's a major chunk of income. They start looking at other careers. They still start looking at other ways to do business. And so the expansion teams start losing profit on their expansion locations, which causes them to focus back home at the home base, which then it's a full circle. They go back to making profit at their home base, which takes away their focus on their expansion locations. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. They have to go back because that's the baby. That's where the majority of the profit's coming in. Well, when they do that, they take away the attention and the focus from the expansion location. So it's something I'm concerned about in every market, quite honestly. Next, I wrote down, currently, agents only work to pay the bills and have some money left over. That's just natural. The average, right? You guys are above average because you're watching this today. Average agents only work to pay the bills and have a little bit of money left over, right? A little money for the new car, a little money for their vacation, whatever. In the next market, the focus will be just making enough to pay the bills. So what ends up happening is the expectations get lowered, right? The amount of deals drop because there isn't this want anymore. It's more of a need. The need is I need to make enough money to cover my bills. Right now, the need is, I need to make enough money to cover my bills, but I also expect to make more than that because the market's hot. See, it's expectations. When the market's not hot, it's like, well, as long as I'm covering my bills, I'm okay. What does that do? That naturally lowers the amount of transactions that take place in the market. Next, I wrote down, brokerages struggle to make a profit and new fees are introduced or less services are provided to make ends meet. Very common. You'll see this with real estate teams as well. Brokers struggle to make a profit, and so therefore new fees are introduced or less services are provided to make ends meet. Next, I wrote down, and this kind of goes back to the buyer's agent thing, and this is where I do think teams should adapt this model if they're not already. The showing agent role will succeed because there are more homes to show. All right, so I'll tell you, at JGA, Jeff Glover and Associates, we are thrilled to have a pretty awesome team of showing agents that are going to be geared up to show a lot of homes, because our agents, instead of spending time out showing double the amount of homes, because we'll start to see inventory increase, they're going to use showing agent. So I believe in the next market, the showing agent role actually becomes more prominent, and I believe most teams should adopt that if they don't already. If you're a solo agent, hire a showing agent. If you have more buyer leads than you can handle, you're going to be showing more homes, so you better consider hiring a showing agent. I wrote down inside sales teams and inside sales associates do better because there are more opportunities for them to prospect, right? The reality is they might be going back 15 days to try to find 50 expireds in your current market. But when you start having 50 expireds and withdrawals every single day, there's plenty of opportunities to go around. I wrote down next, the next market, and this kind of has to do with the technology piece. The next market will be about who can capture the most info from consumers, A, and B, make the best use of it. Who can convince consumers to opt in, to give you their information, because in return they're going to get something. What is that in return? What is the value? It could be a phenomenal newsletter you're putting out. It could be infotainment, right? The best pools in the community. Once a month, there's an awesome newsletter that they receive that they actually open and read, not the standard one that goes out. It could be information on their home's value. Whatever it is you can do to get them to opt in, give you their information so you can give something back in value and continue to keep them coming back. That model will work in the next tech industry. We're already seeing in the next market that's infested with tech, if you will. We're already starting to see that. Who can capture the most info from consumers and make the best use of it? Next, I wrote down big franchises will succeed while mom and pop shops fall behind. The big franchises have been saving up their money in this hot market. I know that. I've been watching them. So guess what? They have the financial ability to go out and invest and adapt to the new market. The mom and pop shops didn't do that, most of them. All right, so I am very fearful a lot of the independent brokerages will struggle in the next market, especially because of technology. I think the technology will be the make or break with the bigger franchises versus the independent brokerages. Now, of course, you could argue independent brokerage, there might be some benefits, and I'm sure there are, but in that game, in the technology game, which will be a big piece of our next market, I believe the independent brokerages will struggle. Next, I wrote down offices will reduce square footage to save money, which means more agents working in less space. That's the reality. We have to look, the brokerages have to reduce their square footage in order to save costs in the next market, which means they will expect agents to work in less square footage, right? The standard for years was, 100 square feet, a 10 by 10 space per agent. We're already seeing it in some of our markets, some of the market centers that are being built today, where it's half of that, 50 square feet per agent or 25 square feet per agent. That will happen in the next market. So get used to working in a tighter space with more people around and more energy, which is a good thing, and more noise and so forth. I wrote down, and some of you will take offense to this, at-home agents will struggle or go away entirely. At-home agents in the next market will struggle or go away entirely. The reason for that is because the value of environment, the value of structure, the value of accountability, those things that you just automatically get, the value of human stimulation in conversation will increase in the next market because we're going to need that more. Market shifts, it's going to be much harder for agents working from home to succeed at a high level. I wrote down, let's see, agents that are relying on Facebook right now. You get a lot of business from Facebook, just like open houses, that is going to drop. Okay, the business that you get from Facebook, you're still going to be in front of your database, and I'm still going to encourage you to use Facebook, and you're still going to do the post when you sell a listing. All of that will happen. You'll just get less of a response from it. So if you're going to get less of a response from it, that means you need to make it up somewhere else. All right. It's called, I know, it's unfortunate, I know, I see some sad faces coming up when I say that. The business that you get from Facebook will decline in a shifting market. You're still going to do all the posts. You're still going to put yourself out there. You're still going to get business, just not as much. So you're going to have to find another source of business. The agent that talks to and gets in front of their database the most will win the game. So you could argue, well, my Facebook is my database. Okay, that's one thing. But what are you doing to physically get in front of them? What are you doing to get in front of them by phone? All right, client events, phone calls, giving them market updates, stopping by their home. I wrote down the agent that thinks a CRM will solve all their issues in the next market will struggle. The agent that thinks a CRM will solve all their issues in the next market will struggle. CRM is going to be important. All right, I know the company I'm with is creating a legit CRM, and I'm super excited about it because I know it's going to be a crucial part of our business, but it's not going to be the majority of where our business is going to come from. I'm still going to believe the business from the CRM, I call it bonus business, right? I don't rely on the CRM for my business. Heck, we were doing 900 transactions with no CRM just 18 months ago. 900 transactions, no CRM. My CRM was an Excel spreadsheet. We didn't do anything with it. Next, I wrote down, previewing properties and pre-qualifying sellers will become necessary again. Previewing properties and pre-qualifying sellers will become necessary again. Why is that? Because you're going to have to know the inventory, because it's going to be a price war and a beauty contest. And when you show up to an appointment and you don't know the home down the street, you don't know the condition, and you can't talk with confidence about that, it's going to cost you the listing. Because guess what? The sellers will pick up on the fact that pricing is important. So guess how they'll choose their agent? They'll choose their agent based on who knows their market the best. How do you know the market the best? You preview your property. You get familiar with the neighborhoods. You make sure you go through every single photo before you go to their door. Pre-qualifying sellers. A lot of you got away from that in the hot market because every listing was selling. Going back through the pre-qual script. You can go on our website, gloveru.com. The scripts are there. There's videos of me doing the pre-qual script somewhere on the Facebook page. They're out there. Go check them out. Next, I wrote down, we will start to see some short sales and some foreclosures. Okay, that's okay. It's part of the business. I'm not going to encourage you to instantly jump on, oh, I'm going to be a foreclosure agent. This is going to be great. A lot of those agents, if you talk to them, didn't make a huge profit, if any profit at all. So I would encourage you to talk to agents that were in the foreclosure business in your market if it's honestly something you would consider getting into. I don't think there's going to be, again, what we saw in 8, 9, 10, 11, there's not going to be enough for all these big short sale and foreclosure teams, but there's certainly going to be a decent amount of business from them. I wrote down the cost of buyer leads will drop. This is a big win. The cost of buyer leads drop because less agents can afford them, right? So less agents are buying buyer leads when the market shifts, so therefore the cost of buyer leads actually declines. That's a good win. The reality is there might actually be less motivated buyers out there though, because their urgency has diminished. In a shifting market, the urgency isn't like what it is now or has been. I wrote down in the shifting market, the need for real estate sales training increases, yet the ability to afford it decreases. That's a challenge. The need for real estate sales training goes up, yet the ability to afford it decreases. Finally, I want to finish with, I wrote down 5 things to prepare yourself for the next market. And we're going to post a video sometime in the next few days or next week where I go in depth on each one of these things. All right. So I got 6 thoughts to share with you here. 5 thoughts. My mistake. Okay. You already heard me say this. Thought number 1 is the salesperson mentality versus the real estate agent mentality. All right. Again, I'll put a video out there. I'm going to spend a good 7 to 10 minutes just on that topic, what I mean by that. Next, number 2, to prepare for the next market and to get ready for it and to thrive in it, sharpen your tools through strong role play. All right. I know it sounds silly because, oh, role play this. Yeah, I've been doing this 10 years. I don't need to role play. The video I'm going to put out, I talk about 10, 15 minutes of strong role play and how to prepare for it. Number 3, the skill of time management. All right. I'm going to go through, again, in the next couple of days when that video comes out, exactly everything you need to know to prepare for the shift and when it comes to time management. Next, the prospecting piece. You guys know me best. Been talking about prospecting for a long time. I'm going to cover a good chunk, 15, 20 minutes just on that topic. Presenting, going to talk a lot about that, the new listing presentation and buyer consultation that you'll have to prepare yourself for. And then finally, closing, where I'm actually doing actual closes on a presentation, right? It was great. The video I did, a few of the agents asked me questions. Okay, what do you say when they say this? What do you do when they say this? That's all in the video. You'll see that in the next few days. What I would encourage you to do is check out gloveru.com, where we've got scripts on there. We've got videos on there. Obviously, you're watching this, so hopefully you're following us on Facebook, where we're listing all the upcoming videos and events that we're doing, and we'll see you next time.
Do you have
Thanks.
time for a quick question?
Time for a quick question?
Lisa Nolf wants to know, what dialogue are you having with buyers and sellers right now about this shift? What's the best way to communicate that to
Yeah, so
clients?
somebody asked a question, what's the best way to communicate what's happening in the shift? Number one, you show market stats. And so in any market, you see signs of the shift happening. All right, so you can look back, Lisa, over the last 90 days, and you can see the amount of sales are starting to slow. Now, don't look back, don't compare July versus July, all right, because July versus July still looks pretty good. Compare June versus July, right, or compare May versus July. You can see a trend of it already starting to happen. We've started to see minus signs in counties where sales are starting to drop. So I would use that. I would also show data from around the country, what's happening in other parts of the country, because what happens in other parts of the country is eventually going to come here. All right. I would also show historically interest rates, although they're low. All right. You take the last 3 years, the interest rates have started to come up over the last 3 years. So I would use that. So there's 3 or 4 things that you can do to relay that. Any other questions?
People were asking, what are the 4 things you should do to focus on getting listings in this coming shift?
The
Maybe
4
right over that.
Yeah, so the 4 things to do to get listings in this upcoming shift will be a whole nother series, and I'll definitely answer that question for you soon.
Okay, great.
All right, we'll see you guys. Follow us on GloverU on Facebook or gloveru.com for our next event. See you guys.